Confirmation's going great.
Oh, they haven't started yet.
I think they'll all pass.
So, when they do start, which happens to be today. President-elect Donald Trump saying he's confident his cabinet picks will be approved in Senate confirmation hearings that start today. Dr. Jeff Engel, director of the Center for Presidential History at SMU. And he's rewriting history with the way this transition is going, certainly.
It is. It's really unprecedented in the fact that he's not had any press conferences. He's actually going on 180 days now without a press conference. Of course, he has one scheduled this week.
Right.
But of course, he had one scheduled last week.
Right.
As well. But the truth is that he's actually been very communicative. It's just all through Twitter. It's all through 140 characters, and it's all through whatever he feels like talking about.
Which is frustrating to people like the two of us who are policy wonks and want details. But let's be blunt. Most of the American public doesn't care about the nitty-gritty. They just want to know bim, bam, boom, yes or no.
It's the bim, bam, boom that's a little bit of the problem, because sometimes there's a little bit of nuance that's required when you're the President of the United States.
Right.
And Twitter is not really set up for nuance. It's really set up for letting him shift the dialogue and shift the conversation, frankly, to whatever it is that he wants to talk about, which may not necessarily be the policy. So we're going to see a lot of movement in Congress. We're going to see a lot of movement on legislation. We're going to see a rollback of Obamacare, a repeal of Obamacare immediately. And Donald Trump is going to be talking about Meryl Streep and the Golden Globes.
Right. Well, let's talk about what the Senate's going to be talking about today. First up is Jeff Sessions, senator from Alabama, who's going to appear before his fellow senators. He is liked. He is respected. He's got some baggage from way back 30-plus years ago that is still haunting him.
He does. He actually was rejected for a district clerk job from the federal government.
District court.
District court, excuse me. Thank you. Which is only the second time that had happened in 50 years before.
Right.
It's very, very unusual. And the reason was because he had some baggage, some bad racial language, some difficulty with race politics and with voter fraud prosecutions that people were uncomfortable with. All that being said, he's going to get confirmed. He's a very popular guy, and this is not a place where the senators, GOP or Democratic, are going to make a stand.
And it should be said in fairness that not every African American in his home state of Alabama is against him. A lot are very much in favor of him and say he is a wonderful man.
Well, he's been elected. I mean, he's a very popular guy in his home state and in the Senate, as we said.
Let's talk about a guy from Texas, from ExxonMobil, based in Irving, Rex Tillerson, a longtime oil guy, career guy with ExxonMobil. And the big question about him nominated for Secretary of State is he's not a diplomat. I mean, he could certainly point out every country in the world on a map, but he's not a diplomat. And he does have some interesting ties to Russia.
Well, now here's, I think, going to be a much more contentious debate and much more contentious confirmation hearing, and I think it's actually going to have very little to do with the Secretary of State nominee, with Tillerson, because he does have ties with Russia, which of course opens up the whole Russia question, which is making many of the senators, especially Trump's former rivals, very uncomfortable. If we take down a list of all the people that Trump has defeated or insulted within the Senate, within the GOP, we're talking about John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio from Florida. All these people are not only upset with Trump, but very upset previously with Russia. So consequently, when we have the President-elect of the United States denying what every single intelligence agency of the government says, that the Russians interfered in our election, and questioning the integrity of the intelligence services, was really unusual and really unprecedented, we're going to see, I think, a lot of fireworks over Russia. Now, that being said, he's still going to get confirmed, I think.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be an ugly scene for him.
The Obama farewell, this is all happening on the same day, the confirmation hearing starting on the same day, that President Obama tries to cement his legacy and define how he wants history and the country to remember him. And he's pretty popular for the end of term right now. Not wildly, but pretty popular.
Well, he's pretty good historically, I have to say. He's at about 55% at this point, which is close to the high water mark of his presidency. Not quite there, but close. And we have to think about some of the two-term presidents who left with more popular. We think of Ronald Reagan at about 65%. We think about Bill Clinton at 65%. George W. Bush was in the low 30s, high 20s when he left. And this is really a moment for President Obama, who is remarkably popular, especially within a divided country, to cement his legacy when you consider it's very unusual that we have a popular two-term president get essentially booted out by a person who wants to upend everything which he's done.
And who's going to unravel the last 8 years if he keeps that promise from the campaign. All right, Jeff Engel, thanks as always.
Good to talk to you.
Controversy